Welcome to the 3Haunted podcast, where we bring you all things horror, supernatural, folklore, mythology, and all things that go bump in the night.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm your co-host, Kevin, K-Daddy from Dirty South, the ATL, Hotlanta, Georgia. I'm a post-production master, filmmaker, and horror nerd.
And I'm your co-host, John Thomas, ghost hunter, super smartass, and film lover extraordinaire.
Hey guys, this is your co-host Ashley, Gorilla Girl filmmaker, lunar goddess, and cinephile.
What's up, ghouls, gals, and all of our bloody victims? In today's podcast, we're going to be talking about the mythology of vampires. Where did they come from? Do they really exist? And are there vampires around today? Join us and find out. But first, a word from our sponsor, Trap Film Festival.
Cinematic, captivating, terrifying, and intense. Trap 2021 will return live May 21st through the 23rd. New categories, new prizes, and still no entry fee. Visit trapfilmfestival.com for more information.
And we are back. What is going on, everybody? What are vampires? I mean, we all know pretty much what they are through the TVs and...
Rewind.
I meant to say TV shows, not the TVs. We know they're from TVs. Oh my god, no. The TVs are coming at us.
Oh no.
Holy balls.
Holy balls.
Holy balls.
Do priests have holy balls?
They must.
Do priests have holy balls?
Just roll with it here for just a moment. If holy water works on vampires,
Ew.
is there such thing as holy teabagging and or like holy semen? Will that work effectively?
The power of golden showers compels you.
Ew. Is that a thing?
Follow-up question. All water has to be blessed in order to become holy water.
Correct.
The body fluids, assuming that it does count, does the body fluid, by proxy of being made internally of said priest, does that automatically make it holy, or does the priest have to like bless it as it's coming out?
Oh god. Okay. I think by proxy it's automatically holy, but just to be safe, it's like do a little quick Hail Mary and then like you're good. Cross yourself.
Wow.
Oh my gosh, weird. Okay. And this is how you start an episode.
I feel like we should just go straight into the vampire kit section.
I think so.
Right?
Definitely. No. Jesus Christ. That took a turn that I did not expect. That was great though. Leave it to Kevin to come up with something sexual.
I didn't. It was Ashley.
I started it.
Oh, my bad. Sorry. It's been a week. Let me tell
I'll
you.
own it. I'm the one who started.
That's true. It's true. I mean, you did say something about...
I said holy balls and teabagging, and then it went.
Yes, I was going to say the teabagging came in there somewhere. Jesus.
Now you're going to think twice before you accept tea time invitations.
Hey, do you know why vampires can't get pregnant?
Why?
Because they need permission to come inside.
Dun, dun, dun. That's so bad it's good. I like that.
All right.
Alrighty.
Well, we came out the door swinging with our holy balls.
Holy balls.
But I love vampires. I don't know about you guys. Like, vamps have been part of my upbringing, and like, be it Bram Stoker's Dracula, Underworld.
I mean, when I was little, I kind of wanted to be a vampire. I mean, who didn't want to turn into a bat and fly away, right?
I still do.
The whole drinking blood thing kind of got me, but...
When I was like 2 or 3, my mom let me watch The Lost Boys. That's like part of her thing with our family, though. She shows kids the scary movies when they're young, like almost like a rite of passage in our family. So I grew up watching all of the horror movies thanks to my mom and her Blockbuster card. Lost Boys, I believe, was probably one of the first vampire movies I'd seen because I was so young, and I loved it. I would go around introducing myself to her friends as Star. I still collect Lost Boys memorabilia. I was working one of the Comic-Cons in Salt Lake City and came across this vendor who had the coolest art piece, and it says Santa Carla, but in the images, it's just got all these subtle details from the movie.
Recently, didn't you just do a self-guided locations tour?
Oh my gosh, I did. I went to Santa Cruz where a lot of the Lost Boys was filmed. They actually, if you go onto their website, they have maps
Cool.
for self-guided Lost Boys tours on the city website. And so I got one of the maps and went on a Lost Boys kind of scavenger hunt trying to find all the places I could find. Went to the comic book shop, bought the Lost Boys comic book.
Nice.
So the one that you see in the movie Vampires Everywhere that they show him, I bought
I
that
want one.
from the comic book shop that, you know, is in the Lost Boys.
I need to go to Santa Cruz.
Yes, you do. Yeah, went to the boardwalk and found Grandpa's house because it takes a little bit of a hike to get to Grandpa's house.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
So Lost Boys is a really well done vampire movie that shows a lot of the subtleties. They created their own rules of the vampire world, right? Like the master vampire and the hierarchy of how does one even become a vampire. There's the half vampires, full vampires, master vampires. So they have a full hierarchy. But that's not the standard we see in film and stories. So what are the rules, universal rules we typically see, and who has spun it on its head?
I mean, I know they can't, like Kevin's bad joke earlier, can't come inside unless they're invited.
Rude.
Also with Buffy the Vampire Slayer, that's in that. My whole thing is, and I know with the wooden stakes, I know that in like European times or whatever, they used to stab the bodies to make sure that like when the ground would shift or the floods or whatever, so the bodies wouldn't float back up. But who actually came up with the idea to stab the vampire in the heart with the wooden stake? Like, I don't know where the wooden stake comes from. I get it, it's pointy, but like, what about metal? What about, I don't know.
There has to be a story behind the wooden stakes. It would be interesting to go back and find out like why the wooden stakes and why that has such a important factor in like killing of the vampires in the lore, and especially the lore that we all know of, and what's become of mainstream vampirism and whatnot. And same with, crucifixes. Like, why crucifix? Why do vampires always have like that religious tie?
So for the wooden stakes, a lot of that was rooted in old traditional beliefs. So it's not so much that it's just wood, it was actually the type of wood.
Right.
So is it made of ash, aspen, willow, juniper, stuff like that? Because each type of wood is steeped in folklore that gives it its power. So in Asia, willow was used to believe to have power over the dead. And so that would have been the wood used for the stakes. In the Norse tradition, it was the ash tree that is associated with life that, kind of ends the vampire's life. And then you have aspen, which is believed to be a connection to the other world in England, as well as juniper. So in Europe, juniper was a really popular wood used for wooden stakes because it's a symbol of protection. And that was actually in England and Scotland. So really, I think because like anything else, like telephone, things get left out as it carries over. Well, you're starting with very old school folklore over there. And as it comes over here, it's like, well, they used a wooden stake. Oh, I don't remember what kind. So just grab a wooden stake. Okay. So it's just, I think it just really depends where it's one of those lost in translation things of what type of wood was being used. But isn't it interesting that that carried through across multiple areas and multiple types of cultures?
Yeah.
Maybe made of something different, rooted in different beliefs, but they all have the same concept. Yeah. Stick it through its heart.
Exactly. That's why I was like, well, maybe metal. Come on. I mean, anything going through the heart's going to kill it.
Just like taking its head off.
There's various forms of vampires too. There's some forms that are susceptible to metal and like gunshot wounds and other forms, but most of what we've grown to know about vampires does stem from that traditional one and whatnot.
When you asked about the religious, why the holy water, why the cross? So we're going to take it even a step further up. There are different different types of vampires. There are the sanguinal vampires, which are the traditional ones that drink blood. They're the ones that we see on the movies for the most part, and they're the traditional vampire. And the sanguinal vampire can actually even be divided into 4 more categories. And those, you have the demonic in origin. And demonic in origin is where you see the ones that are susceptible to the religious weaknesses, the crosses, the crucifixes, the holy water, the sunlight, because sun is associated with God. It's a direct correlation, and it is religious in nature. So you have the ones who are demonic in origin, like Dracula. They have been taken over by something. It has merged with the human's DNA, and they are now a creature that can stay in human form and be very charismatic and appealing and alluring. But they also then transform into this creature that's terrifying. Yeah. And then you have the indirect demonic, which would be creatures like Nosferatu. And that's a creature who does not change his form. You never see Nosferatu go from human to vampire. He is a creature. He is a vampire creature. He started that way. He ends that way. So for him, even though, sunlight was a weakness for him, he wasn't that typical demonic origin Dracula. He would be an indirect demonic vampire. And then you have the human origin ones. Now, I thought that was pretty cool because for me, I thought human origin vampires would be like Dracula, right? But they're not. One of the most fascinating things, I've been researching vampires since I was little and probably shouldn't have been researching vampires, but it's like I have been looking up this stuff for a really long time. And when I read this, I was just like, how did I never come across this? This is so cool. This should be in a movie. How do we not have more of this? So human vampires, they're human origin vampires. There is this belief that everybody is born with latent psychokinetic powers in our DNA. We all have it in our junk DNA. So it's like our DNA that's not actively in use. And we may go our whole lives never tapping into this psychokinetic power. It just may stay latent and dormant. But there are some who carry a vampire gene in their junk DNA. And as they get older into their teens, usually late teens, that DNA kicks in. And so they start to experience things like cravings of rare meat and blood and like these things that some may associate with cannibalism, but it's not. It's this vampire DNA that is latent, dormant inside of their junk DNA. So where they think it comes from, they actually see it as a filtered demonic vampire power in human form. So it's like this demonic power, but it's filtered free of darkness because it's just in DNA form. It's just like scientific DNA form. This is not a science thing. This is not real, but it's this idea that it's in the DNA. And so it's filtered out from any demonic influence, which means because it's filtered out from the demonic influence, they are not susceptible to the typical demonic vampire weaknesses. So crucifixes, sunlight, none of that bugs them. They are not weak in the same way, but they have the same strengths. Like, holy cow, how cool is that?
I hope I have that gene sitting dormant and it's just going to spark up someday and I get to be a vampire. That'd be awesome.
How cool would that be? All the strength, none of the weaknesses.
Right.
Now, they also don't have the immortality. Yeah. So that's the one trade-off.
Which that aspect of vampirism, it gets under my skin in like this, like I'm intrigued by it, but I'm also terrified by it because, in the 1700s, they thought that the blood was the life. And that's partially where they came from with vampires and why they were drinking blood is they were drinking the life force of another person. And that's what would give them that immortality. With some stories, if they weren't feeding and they weren't drinking, they would eventually die. Their mortality would catch up and whatnot. But that's a subject that just, I can't wrap my head around because it would be incredibly strange to have that immortality.
They also say if a human vampire drinks blood from a direct demonic origin vampire, so let's say my junk DNA activates and I'm a human vampire and I drink from Dracula, then I can transform into a real immortal demonic vampire. like, okay, cool. Like, wow, that's interesting. But who comes up with the rules? Because I love it. Like, I love this imagination. And I'm not trying to offend anybody because
Yeah.
a lot of people believe this is real. So, and maybe it is. I don't know. But it's just like, wow, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't want to live forever, honestly? I mean, we all have at one point. Yeah, why not? I mean, it would suck seeing everybody die, but screw you guys. I'm going to be here forever. No, I'm just kidding.
Ouch.
I mean, I guess it would depend on the terms because if I had to be like the rules of a demonic origin vampire where I am susceptible to weaknesses of a religious nature or I can't be in the sunlight, then I may be living forever, but I'm living forever in a half-life state.
Yeah.
That's just wow, so much I'm missing. And not saying that like, oh man, I can't go to church, but it's like, oh man, I can't go outside during the day. Like these hours, I can step outside and fry like a crispy bacon. Like, no, I don't want that.
Yeah.
True, very true. I like bacon.
I don't want to be bacon.
I don't want to be bacon either, but I mean, just think of the smell. Oh man, bacon.
That's gross, John.
As long as we don't sparkle, it's okay.
Have you ever smelled human flesh burning?
No, but if it smells like bacon, then I'm okay.
It does not smell like bacon.
Obviously, it does not.
It doesn't.
It doesn't.
Oh, geez.
And then there are magical origins vampires.
I mean-
Those are vampires that have been cursed or spelled. So a person that was spelled or cursed into being a vampire, which we've seen those in movies and read about those in books too.
Yeah. To your point about like who makes up the rules, I don't want to blanket it as all of the rules, but I do think a lot of them come from back in the 1700s and the 17th century and just how strong religion had a play in things. Because even in the Bible, it says that the blood is life. And I feel like that influenced a lot of the rules. And just to kind of circle back to what you said earlier with the game of telephone, I think that the rules get passed down and certain details start splintering off and getting left out and eventually get lost in the book of time. And with today, they take these things and start tweaking the rules to fit their narrative that they're trying to tell. And then that just feeds into that game of telephone and it slowly funnels down, just like with Bram Stoker with Dracula. Like he took a lot of bits from folklore, tweaked it a little bit to write the story of Dracula. And then that started feeding into more or less what we see are the base rules of vampires.
At what point in time did it go from being a belief to a story? Like from something that someone believed. We actively, as a community, believe in these vampires to this is a really interesting story. Let's write all the things. It's now imagination. I mean, it's all imagination to some extent, but it goes from being a commonly accepted belief into a fun genre.
I would say that it was the advancement of science and understanding of illness. A lot of the early stories of vampirism reflect a lot of the conditions of tuberculosis, like the coughing up blood, the slow draining of the color in the skin, the faintness, the weakness, and eventual death before people really knew what the science was and the medical reasonings behind a lot of that. With a lot of folklore, they would come up with a reasoning that was beyond this world to explain it, to be able to grasp and fully understand. And I feel like with the advancement of science, that's when we started going away from this is the reality and the truth to starting to turn it into a story.
I'm going to one up you on that one and go back to the Middle Ages when the plague was around. Plague would actually leave behind bleeding mouth lesions.
What was a blood loss? Extreme blood loss.
Yeah.
Which is why people thought something was coming in and draining people of their blood.
Right. And going back to porphyria, which is a blood disorder, it was back in medieval Europe. The effects were skin blisters, pigment changes, the inability to heal skin, deterioration of the lips and the nose, extreme photosensitivity, receding tissues like your gums, your lips, and irregular hair growth. And that's kind of where some of the werewolf stuff came into over there. That's a whole other thing. But anybody who had that disease basically would be a little relieved by drinking blood. And so that's part of where I think the drinking of the blood came into, because it would help kind of calm down some of the other stuff.
So do you guys know why garlic is a ward against vampires?
I don't.
Garlic back in the day, so tying into Kevin's science thing, back in the day, vampirism was believed to be a blood disease, right? Still is. It's a disease you get infected in the blood. Garlic was actually used as a natural antibiotic against many types of infections. So they figured if you've got a blood disease, well, what are you going to use? Use that natural antibiotic, garlic. So that was considered a cure. But also, in a lot of cultures, garlic is considered a powerful charm against all types of evil. So in China, Malaysia, the West Indies, garlic doubles as protection against the activities of witches and sorcerers. And they actually, fun fact, in China and Malaysia, children have their foreheads smeared with garlic for protection against evil. So garlic's also been used in the Christian church in ceremonies to banish evil. So it's across many types of religions and ceremonies and beliefs against evil.
Huh.
So it makes sense. Vampires are evil, right? Throw some
Yeah.
garlic at them.
See, that's one reason I could not be a vampire. It's because I love garlic and I love pizza and I love pasta.
Just don't be a demonic origin vampire.
Yeah,
True.
there you go.
Yeah,
There's other types.
that's true.
Do you know there's such things as reverse vampires?
Reverse vampires.
They're called soul vampires, not SOUL, but SOL. They are vampires that survive and thrive off of the blood of plants. So the chlorophyll.
So like a
they're
vegan.
Every vegan I meet now, I'm going to be like, soul vampire.
We mean no offense to
knew it.
any vegans listening.
Maybe a little bit. I'm just kidding.
But you have non-sanguinal vampires as well. I mean, you have what are called energy vampires. They feed off of the energetic life force of people. They can drain people through skin contact or through no contact. Just depending how strong they are. If you come across somebody and you feel drained afterwards, oh, damn vampire. Like, they took all my energy.
Sadly, though, I actually knew somebody that was like that. I used to work with somebody like that, and I could not. Every time I worked with this person after they were gone, it was just like I had nothing left. It was like, holy shit, they are actually sucking my energy out of my body, and it's ridiculous.
See? It's real. So real.
They've implemented that type of vampire into the show, What We Do in the Shadows. And it's hilarious because like he's the only emotional vampire of the group.
What would you say some of your top vampire favorite movies are? Obviously, The Lost Boys, Bram Stoker's Dracula. What else?
John Carpenter's Vampires is one of my favorite movies. I absolutely love it. James Woods is amazing.
Did you like part 2, Vampires Los Muertos?
I know they had like a couple of them. One of the sequels was actually better than the other one. I can't remember. It was 2 or 3.
Part 2 had Bon Jovi.
Yeah. Go Bon Jovi. They went from James Woods to Bon Jovi. And I love Bon Jovi, don't get me wrong. But like,
He actually did well.
yeah.
I forgot that was hair swinging, singing Bon Jovi while I watched that movie. So I applaud him. He actually sold it.
Right.
Totally makes living on a prayer mean something totally different.
Ba-da-bum. And Kevin has the bad joke of the day.
You're welcome.
It's still early yet.
I have to go with Robert Rodriguez's From Dusk Till Dawn.
Yes, another one of my favorites. George Clooney, Quentin Tarantino. Come on.
Danny Trejo.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to give Tarantino that shout out too. He wrote it.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
You can't just call him Rodriguez.
You're fired.
Those two are a dream team when it comes to films.
Mm-hmm.
And yes to From Dusk Till Dawn. I love that they cast George Clooney.
Yeah.
Because typically I would, like, if he had not been cast in that movie and you came to me and said, yeah, there's going to be a vampire movie where George Clooney plays the lead, I'd be like, what are you smoking? That's just not a horror lead. But he delivers the lines so dry and so well that you can't help it. He does it so well.
The entire cast sells. Like, again, to your point about George Clooney, not in a million years would I ever expect him in that role, especially that early in his career, because he was just coming off of like
Yeah, I was going to say ER and stuff like
ER,
that.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like Pretty Boy George Clooney.
Yeah, to go from that to like tatted up, delivering the best line. I still love it. The guys at the end, like, so what? Were those psychos or something? And he delivers the psychos do not explode when sunlight hits them. I don't give a fuck how crazy they are. All the cast did well.
Selma Hayek.
Nobody else can do Salma Hayek's snake dance scene. Nobody.
No.
Nope.
What was her character's name? Was it Satanico?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, like There is only one Satanico, and that is Mother Flippin' Salma Hayek.
Yes. Oh, yes.
I braved zombies so I could see the From Dusk Till Dawn haunted house. So if I can brave zombies, that tells you how much I love From Dusk Till Dawn.
Yeah, true.
Very true.
And you made a joke about just the first one, but I actually enjoyed the third one, The Hangman's Daughter.
Yeah, I think that was the one I liked too.
I don't think I've seen the third one.
2 was hokey, but still fun.
Right.
3 was actually decent. The Hangman's Daughter is the prequel.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
I'm gonna have to check that out now.
Yeah.
I feel like I stopped after 2 just because of the hokiness.
How campy it is.
Bon Jovi.
It wasn't Bon Jovi.
I know it wasn't Bon
It
Jovi.
was Robert Patrick, is a cowboy.
Yes, very
A
true.
cowboy bank robber.
I need to give a little shout out to one of the most famous vampires of all, the Count from Sesame Street.
Oh my god.
That guy is awesome.
One.
I'm sorry. I thought he was going to go with Edward Cullen, and I was going to smack him upside the face.
Oh
Because
my gosh.
sparkle vampires, no.
We don't count those.
No,
Those are not vampires.
No, they are. I don't even know what they are.
You want to know what my biggest hangup was with that series, other than the fact that it was glorifying unhealthy relationships towards teenagers? The thing that bugged me about this concept, they tried to change the vampires too much. I could forgive that they flip and sparkle in the sunlight. Okay, like I could forgive that. You want glitter sparkle vampire? All right, be fabulous all day, every day.
Right.
But the fact that when the vampires were actually showing themselves, like fighting and feeding, there were no teeth. There were flat human teeth.
That's true.
There were no vampire teeth. And I'm like, how? Have you tried to bite a person and draw blood? I don't give a shit how hard you bite. It is really hard to draw blood on somebody.
Especially that much to drink. I mean, come on.
Yeah, and it's just like you're expecting me to believe that these things are like feeding, because the whole underlying secondary storyline is they're finding bodies of these townspeople. They're so mutilated and torn apart. And then I see these vampires jumping on each other with no vampire teeth, no kind of claws. And I'm like, okay. Even if you have extra superhuman strength here, how the hell are you mutilating the flesh?
Jaws of steel.
It didn't make sense. They wanted people to believe these are like creatures with super vampire animalistic tendencies, but there was nothing but sparkle sunshine. I sparkle in the sun.
They run up with like a hole punch and just go pop, pop.
Apparently.
I can't remember what movie it was from. I think it was an anime, but there was a joke where somebody was talking to a vampire and was like, so the teeth, are they just to make the puncture wounds and then you just suck? Or is there like a straw built into the tooth? And the vampire like touches the tooth and like, never thought about that. I don't know.
That's a valid point, I would say.
Well, it's a latch on, just like anything else. So your teeth act as the entrance point, but then you latch your lips around like a suction to then suck in the blood.
Hey.
Shush. Speaking of the teeth, though, if you watch movies like The Lost Boys, it's not their canines that are the vampire teeth. It's the ones next to the front teeth. What are those? Your incisors?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
I like to see which teeth they're playing on, because there are some vampire movies where it's the incisors and the canines.
Mhm.
The canines are longer, but then like the incisors are also sharp. And then there is Blade Part 2, where it's the modified vampire. The head vampire does genetic tests on his son and turns him into that enhanced super vampire. And his whole flipping jaw disconnects, like dislodges, and it's like all teeth. That was terrifying and cool.
Yeah.
I forgot all about Blade.
Blade.
And then you have Nosferatu, who with his 2 front teeth, right?
Yep, his two big front teeth. Fun fact, the 1922 Nosferatu was the first live interpretation of Bram Stoker's Dracula. But because of copyright issues, they changed all the names and everything from Count Dracula to Count Olaf.
Very interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Great movie. They actually recently started doing like a road show of showing the 1922 film, but having a live band playing with it with the old accompanying music, but they'll play it in like a modern contemporary style, which is really cool. What the music they make, the creatures of the night. Bela Lugosi, poster child of what you think of when you think of vampires.
Did you know that Joss Whedon modeled his vampires off of the vampires in The Lost Boys?
Really?
Joss Whedon said that the film perfectly captured the way that he thought young vampires should look and act like.
Oh, that's awesome. I can totally see that.
Like the facial structure and
Yeah.
Anybody remember that movie that he did before the TV show?
Which one?
The Buffy movie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
With
Yeah,
Christy,
with
with
Christy
Christy Swanson.
Swanson.
Yes. Oh, I love it. It's so cheesy and bad. With Pee Wee Herman even.
As Pee Wee Herman?
No, as a vampire.
Okay.
Paul Rubens.
Paul
okay, not Pee Wee
Rubin was
Herman. Yes.
Paul
he
Rubin was a vampire in that?
He was the master's second or whatever. The dude that went out and got everybody.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It was cheesy then and it's so cheesy now, but I love it.
Have you guys seen Once Bitten?
With Jim
Jim
Carrey?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I am pretty sure I've seen most vampire movies out there from the 80s, 90s, and 2000s.
That's
Right.
awesome.
I've seen some really weird, obscure, underground vampire movies as well. Like that one Blood I told you about. That was so cool.
I'm still trying to find that.
It's like a vampire erotic evanescence film.
I need to watch that. Like, that is a need of mine now.
Do you know why David wore gloves in The Lost Boys?
Mm-mm.
I know all sorts of stuff. He actually wore gloves in The Lost Boys because the actor himself, Kiefer, was doing a stunt to try and impress a girl on his motorcycle while filming and totally ate it and
Of
broke
course.
his wrist. So he had to get a cast and they put gloves on him so you couldn't see his cast. And they actually switched which side the brake and gear shift was on the motorcycle.
Huh. Kiefer Sutherland was a vampire in Lost Boys.
Mhm.
Yes.
His dad, Donald Sutherland, was the one who found Buffy in the movie.
Yes, he was.
To be a vampire slayer.
Like, yeah. Like, what do you think that Thanksgiving is like?
Yes.
Which, by the way, the vampires in Buffy the Vampire Slayer were inspired by the vampires in the Lost Boys. So, all the connections.
All of it. That's amazing.
Okay, so a vampire favorite of mine that we have not discussed for Rights Night. Welcome to Fright Night.
Yes.
Chris Sarandon as Jerry Dandridge. So woon, just so woon.
Do you like how he eats apples?
I love how he eats apples.
That has been mentioned before already, Kevin. Come on now. Here we go.
No, I just think that film is so well done from so many perspectives. I love Evil Ed. Like that character did an amazing job as Evil Ed, but he always seems to play the same character. Like you watch 976 Evil and it's like the same character. It's just like, oh look, it's Evil Ed. Continued on. They all did such a great job in their casting and I loved it. I just love the lines. Like, as a, when you're younger and you watch it, you're just so into it. You don't really think about what's being said. And then I watch it as an adult, and it's like these teens are up in their room, and mom's like none the wiser downstairs chilling. And, Amy's just like, Charlie, do you want to make love now? I'm ready. And then it's like they're downstairs fighting, and Amy yells at him, do you want to make love or not? And the mom's just like, what's wrong, guys? You having a lover spat? Like they're talking about sex.
Mom of the year.
And mom's just like, sure, neighbor, come on over. I'm lonely. Sorry, he only likes hookers.
Right.
And apparently teenagers.
Yes.
Gross.
Well, he has that obsession with Amy. And she was, 16 or 17?
Yeah.
So,
Gross.
just putting that out there. And I love how when Amy becomes a vampire, she goes from being like 15-year-old with short hair to like suddenly va-va-voom 30-year-old with like rocking out bombshell body. It's like, what the hell just happened? Is this what happens when you become a vampire? Because sign me up. I want to go through that glow up. Can I glow up, please?
I just want to be Jerry Dandridge.
Oh my gosh. Oh, Jerry and that red scar. Do you ever watch part 2 with his sister?
It's been a very long time. I don't even remember any of it.
I don't think I even knew that there was a part 2.
Fright Night Part 2 is a continuation on. They do have Charlie. He's now in college, and his sister is out for revenge. Jerry Dandridge's sister.
I know what I'm watching tonight.
I liked it. I really enjoyed part 2.
All right. We've been talking about movies. Gary Oldman as Dracula. Thoughts?
Loved it.
Yeah,
There
it
is
was
no
great.
other.
There's no other thought.
There is no other Dracula.
I mean,
Not Brams. You can take because Dracula is born of like the Vlad, right? The Vlad history and origins. So really, you can come up with all the different Draculas. But when it comes to Bram's Dracula, and yes, I know the story is much different than the movie. But if we're going to talk about that specific storyline, I don't see any other Dracula.
Yeah. What do you think, John?
I agree with Ashley.
Yeah. I don't think anybody would not agree with that. I mean, I do have to give Bela Lugosi and Christopher Lee a huge nod, but Gary Oldman.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we're not talking about classic monsters here. In terms of the Bram Stoker's Dracula, that's just Gary Oldman, and I'm hoping they never touch that storyline. I'm sure they will because nothing's sacred.
Nope.
Yeah, I just hope they keep off of that for a while.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge Winona fan, but she sold it as Mina.
Oh my God, yeah.
Those two had the chemistry. They were Mina and Dracula, and even Keanu. I know people give so much shit to Keanu for playing Jonathan, like he didn't do well, but I thought he sold it too. I think they all held their parts down and did a great job.
Everybody, the entire ensemble was just everybody just played off of each other so well.
Lucy was awesome. The scene where Dracula in his beast form is getting it on with Lucy in the courtyard, especially back then. We have to look at perspective of when this was filmed and when this was shown in theaters. And the fact that they had the balls to show this in a theater at that time is like, holy moly. That's holy balls.
Holy balls.
Holy balls.
Holy vampire balls.
Holy vampire balls. And let's be real, Gary Oldman is not your typical like sex icon when it comes to an actor.
No.
But he was able to channel and emote such a finesse, an actual vampire charm. Like, I'm pretty sure maybe he is a vampire.
Probably.
That he sold it. Like, holy moly, you are a sexual vampire. You are sensuality. And that's no easy feat in general to emote and sell on camera. And he just delivered it in spades.
Like when he would look at Mina and say, "See me." And it's like, I saw you.
I see you. I saw you. We all saw you.
They say that some people are born to play certain roles. Gary Oldman, I feel like, was born to play Dracula.
Agreed. That's like Ryan Reynolds was born to play Deadpool.
Yes.
Daniel Radcliffe was born to play Harry Potter.
Like I'm with you. Certain people, Chris Sarandon was born to be Jerry Dandridge. We've talked about some of the lore in the movies. Are there any vampire books or TV series that you've been about? I know What We Do in the Shadows for you, Kevin. What else?
I mean, there's Buffy and Angel, of course. I like them.
I watched the whole series because once I was in it, I was in it. But I actually did not like Buffy at all. I think we've discussed this before. I'm not about Sarah Michelle Gellar. I feel like it's the same role and delivery of every line and who did it. And I'm here to find the truth. It must be exhausting to be Buffy. I actually like Christy Swanson's Buffy better. I wish that she would have continued on in the series.
I enjoyed Christy Swanson as well. I mean, she did good for his first outing with, Buffy.
First adventure, yeah.
But he wanted to, make it darker and whatever. And of course, with the channel that it was on, it was all about this teen angst and everything. So of course it got, sucked into some of it.
You needed button-nosed Sarah Michelle Gellar.
I love Buffy.
I liked Faith more than Buffy. I watched the series because I liked the supporting characters better than the main character. So I liked Xander and Willow and Faith and Angel and Spike. Holy shit, I loved Spike.
Spike is amazing.
His storyline with Drusilla was just phenomenal.
Yes.
Loved the show. Not a fan of Buffy herself. What about books?
I got no books.
I recently got Kevin into a series. It's a supernatural series, but it has vampires.
Oh, yeah.
It's called The Hollows. It's about supernatural creatures, and vampires are a big, big part of it.
Oh, Ivy.
Oh, Ivy. This is a really good series, John. If you are ever looking for books, The Hollows series by Kim Harrison.
It's a great series.
Is phenomenal.
I think I've heard of it.
And there's like 14 books.
Holy shit. Maybe I haven't.
Yeah.
You know how some books, a series, the further they get along, like it just starts to fall flat.
Right.
This stays solid all the way through.
Book 2 is really what got me hooked.
Yeah. I also actually liked the Vampire Academy series.
Didn't they make a movie?
The movie sucked, but the books were actually not bad. I feel like it's the same thing where book one was but the more you went along, the more it got better. And I think it's also because I like the world they created, the rules of vampires.
Right.
You have your half vampires, but then you have your full vampires, which are strigoi. And the strigoi have to feed off of humans and other vampires and magical creatures. But once you become a strigoi, you lose your soul. And so it's just like all those weaknesses we talk about, suddenly that's what they're weak to. But then they're also infinitely stronger and immortal and fun series.
I'm going to have to check that one out.
Did you guys ever get into Anne Rice? She is like the queen of mainstream vampire.
I was going to say, I was waiting for Interview with the Vampire and Queen of the Damned to be brought up. I never read the books, but I did see those movies.
I did read the books, and I really loved the character Marius. Not a fan of Lestat. I think that the way Lestat was written in Interview with the Vampire was, for the movie, was more appealing. And of all things, like Tom Cruise playing Lestat, but he sold it and was amazing and lovely. And the bromance between him and Brad Pitt, like, what?
Yeah.
Those two, if you had told me they would be vampires and carry that much sensuality and love towards each other, oh my gosh, that was amazing.
Yes. And little old Kirsten Dunst, come on.
And Antonio Banderas. I feel like that was just a movie where they tried to cast as many people as possible and say, look how beautiful we can be as vampires. And after watching that movie, I'm like, please set me up.
All right, I gotta ask, would you guys want to be a vampire?
It depends on the rules. I feel like we discussed this already.
I know we kind of touched on it, but just I'm gonna say generic rules. I'll tweak it a little bit. You can go outside during the day, but it doesn't feel good.
Yes, if that's what I have to put up with, yes, I would be. No, because if I have to feed off of people's blood, that gives me the heebie-jeebies. I don't want to do that.
You could be a vegan vampire.
A vegan. I could be the chlorophyll the soul vampire.
Yes.
I could do that. That work. Just as long as I don't sparkle.
No, don't sparkle.
No sparkle.
Actually, I take that back. That'd be kind of cool to sparkle. Although I feel like you have to compensate. I better grow some gnarly ass teeth
Something.
if I'm gonna sparkle.
Right.
Like crazy fangs.
Right.
Gotta offset it.
You already look sweet and innocent. You got to have something there that makes you scary. Come on.
Something terrifying.
Yes.
Other than my soul and the thoughts in my head. Yeah. And there's so many good ones. Like, I love the vampire genre so much. Just all these good books and films keep popping up in my head. Like, ooh, and I remember this one. And oh, that book. We haven't even touched on Stephen King.
Right.
Salem's Lot,
Oh.
Night Flyer. And it's just like Salem's Lot has been redone so many times. Such a phenomenal story, though. Like, holy balls.
Holy balls.
Holy vampire balls.
But yeah, we've got Stephen King. We have Anne Rice. They did Queen of the Damned. Did you like that film?
I didn't like it.
It's been a minute since I've seen it, but from what I remember, I was kind of indifferent about it.
Did not like Lestat.
No.
Loved Akasha.
Yeah.
Great soundtrack.
Yes.
Soundtrack.
Not a good storyline.
No. No.
But I did love Akasha so much. Like Aaliyah is
Yes.
the best Akasha. Like her subtle movements of her eyes and her neck. Very serpentine. She was the queen of vampires. We are not worthy. Most people have heard of Graveyard Shift, the Stephen King. There's actually a Graveyard Shift vampire movie, and it's about a vampire taxi driver. Totally don't know what I was doing watching this as a teenager, but I was, because there's a lot of sex scenes. But holy moly, just that vampire too. It's like the vampire concept is so intriguing to me.
Yeah. You said it was Graveyard Shift?
Yep. And then there was Blood and Donuts, another indie underground one. Super fun, super good. I would recommend that too.
I'm going to have to write these down.
A little bit more of like a slight comedy, but still horror. It's obviously, you hear the title Blood and Donuts. And
Right.
But it's fun and it's good. It's a really good one. I enjoyed that one.
And to any of our viewers listening, like if you have any recommendations of books, TV shows, movies, anything that fall within the vampire genre, please let us know. # holy balls, and we will find it.
Yes, # holy balls. We will look for that.
Wait, we're going to look for the holy balls?
The hashtag.
Not the actual balls. Okay.
No.
good
I'm
because
good.
that's
Let's get
Get
it
it
trending on
trending.
Twitter.
Oh, we don't even use Twitter.
I was gonna say we have it, but we don't use it, Kevin.
We have it, but how many of us actually use it out of the three of us?
Does anyone actually use?
I'm not a Twitter person. Sorry, that sounds weird to say.
You're a twatter.
Ah,
Twitter.
Any other weird takes on the vampires? Ooh, you know which one I loved? 30 Days of Night. Josh Hartnett.
that one. Eh.
We're used to seeing the vampires like hunt one by one or in little small groups. And 30 Days of Night, it's like you have this whole clan of vampires. And just this concept that like you are stuck in this isolated town with a blizzard, no way out, sun's not coming up for 30 days. Have fun. Whoever created that world, awesome. Like really imaginative, because that's terrifying.
Yeah.
The vampires moved fast. They were impossibly strong and like not just vampire fast, like they were scary fast. How they would just like run through people's houses. And then this idea that now that they've hunted everything, they're going to start setting things on fire to get the people to come out of their hiding spots. And it's like, man, those are some thorough vampires.
I think I'm gonna have to rewatch that one. Yeah, because I don't think when I watched it the first time, I think I was one of those I was kind of paying attention, messing on my phone kind of thing. I just didn't catch me at first, but the whole concept is definitely interesting. I mean, like you said,
I'm just a really good hype man.
yeah. You
You're
are.
like, wow, that does sound good. Let's go watch it.
Right?
I was just a really good hype man. You need me to sell your script or your film, just let me know.
Yes.
I get excited and my voice goes up like 3 octaves.
Yes.
Like, guys, this horror film is so good.
And when you hear that squeak,
Write it down.
and watch it.
That sounds so weird.
I mean, you got Underworld,
Blade.
Blade.
Fucking phenomenal.
Blade. I'm so excited for the new Blade.
Yes.
I'm trying to think of some non-traditional vampire movies.
Same.
Because I've watched a shit ton. It's like, holy moly.
Doesn't surprise me.
Vampire Journals was really good. I've been telling Kevin about that one.
Cirque du Freak
Yeah, I heard of that one.
Mm-hmm.
with John C. Reilly.
Yeah, that was a
Yeah,
fun one.
I like
was
that.
fun. And we're not covering the classics too much because we're gonna have a whole podcast towards the classic monsters.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
Blood Rain was pretty good. Wasn't that a comic book or not a game?
That was
based.
a video game.
Yes,
yeah,
that
the
was
film
a video
wasn't
game.
bad,
No, it wasn't bad.
and it was based on a video game.
That was a fun game.
Yeah, it was.
I played that as a kid.
Well, all right. If we're going into games, Castlevania.
Vampire in Brooklyn, Eddie Murphy.
Yes,
is a
Eddie Murphy. Oh
vampire.
my god, I forgot about that movie. That movie
He
was
did
great.
a great job.
He did.
Yeah, I believed it. Axel
Yes.
Foley with fangs.
Exactly. Oh man.
Dracula, Dead and Loving It.
Leslie Nielsen. Yes.
Yeah.
All of these I forget until you mention them. I'm like, oh yeah.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
telling you, that vampire genre, I have eaten it up. But
Ashley has
Ashley
the bad joke of the
Ashley
day.
wins. Bad joke of the day. Woo-hoo. Did you ever watch Abraham Lincoln Vampire Killer?
Yes. In the book.
Once, and I want to rewatch it. I haven't. Yeah, I need to rewatch that one too because I'm more interested in it now.
It was a fun action film. I'm not sure I'd call it like a horror film. I mean, yes, it's the vampires, but I felt like that was more of an action film. It was fun. It was good fun.
It was really, and it was educational too. Like I know. Well, no, seriously. Like seriously.
I can't even with you.
No, it really was.
I don't remember reading about Abraham Lincoln killing any vampires in history.
No. Like
I must have like totally missed that.
7 years ago, I shot that fucking vampire in the face.
In the face.
I thought it was a fun thing that he had taken all of these historical facts and had twisted it to connect the reality of Lincoln to this fictitious world of the vampires.
Abraham Lincoln's a boss.
Sick! All the blood. Hashtag holy balls.
Holy balls.
Vampires aren't just human form or human derived in nature. You know, you do have creatures that are considered in the vampire umbrella, like the chupacabra, and they feed on livestock typically, but I guess, you know, there have been some instances where they also prey on people. but that is considered a version of a vampire. And we have those creatures in other lore as well. Love the concept of the chupacabra.
Yes.
Well, guys, any last thoughts on vampires? We have been all over the board with vampires, and I love it. I could talk about vampires for hours and hours and hours. In fact, I'm going to go watch a vampire film when I'm done with this podcast.
I might go watch 30 Days of Night because, yeah, like I said, I need to rewatch that one.
Because Ashley's the best hype man ever.
Ever. Seriously.
What strikes you most? Like, are you into the vampire genre, or is it really not your thing? Because some people just don't do vampires.
I mean, again, it's interesting, the whole, wanting to live forever kind of thing. Drinking the blood part's disgusting, but
Agreed.
I definitely don't think I could ever do that. But no, like I said, when I was younger, I definitely wanted to just live forever. But of course, at that point, we all kind of do because we're young and we're crazy and that's just what we are. But I don't know. It doesn't really strike me too much. It's interesting, but not that much to me, I guess.
I don't know what it is about vampires that I have been drawn to since a young age, but I do love it. I even have a tattoo of a gargoyle vampire creature. Not a lot of people know about it, but it's there and it's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I do love the vampire genre. I'll stay away from the zombies.
See, and I don't know. I don't know why I like zombies. Probably not as much as you like vampires, but yeah, zombies are cool.
I would love to see the vampire genre refreshed and make a comeback because I think while the Underworld series was good, series of films, it just got kind of old for me kind of fast.
Mhm.
It would be nice to see the vampire genre make a comeback. In the 2000s, it hit really hard with Blade and The Forsaken, and you had Vampires 1, Vampires 2, Dracula 2000, Dracula 2000 Part 2, like all the sequels.
Right.
Let's not forget, who was it? Gerard Butler as Dracula.
Oh, yeah.
Oh God, yeah.
That was before he was a big star name.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it was a big thing in the 2000s, but it was the same concept being churned out over and over. I'd like to see it done and reintroduced with a fresh take. It doesn't have to be new rules. It could be the same world, but just a new story within that world.
Yeah, going on with that, I mean, I know a lot of, we did talk about kind of the comedy stuff about it too. I definitely want to see like another spoof of vampire stuff. I think that'd be cool. Just something funny. I like to laugh. I do like to be scared, but vampires don't really scare me. So a spoof would be good. Definitely.
I like the spoof film, especially the spoof film they did on Twilight.
Yes.
Vampire Suck.
Yeah.
Oh man, see, that's another one I forgot about until now.
It's a fun genre that you can have fun with in comedy, like with Jim Carrey's Once Bitten or the Leslie Nielsen's Dracula Dead and Loving It. Like, there's lots of fun stuff you can do with it in the comedy realm, and I enjoy a genre that can make fun of itself, that can have fun and make fun of itself. I'd like to see some genre stories done on the human vampire concept, the latent DNA. We haven't really seen that much.
Yeah.
Screenwriters, answer the calling. There's so many options within that world, and people gravitate to the same thing. It'd be really nice to see that veer away. And I always bring it back to COVID, but we're in the middle of a pandemic. This idea of an airborne virus. Imagine an airborne vampire virus. It always goes zombie, but like, what if you had an airborne vampire virus?
Very interesting.
Boom. Copyright that.
I mean, it would be so easy too, because like vampires, early folklore, there's a lot of similarities between vampires and zombies, like coming back from the dead, and like it would be so easy to just swap it out, and you could open up so many of other doors too by having them as like an aware being versus just like this like animalistic monster of like brains.
Hashtag holy balls.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to 3Haunted Podcast with your hosts. I'm Ashley.
I'm John Thomas.
And I'm Kevin K. Daddy.
Do you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for us? Email us at 3hauntedpodcast@gmail.com. And if you haven't done so already, be sure to head on over to our social media pages and hit that follow button. You do not want to miss one crazy second. See you next time.
How do the maggots taste, Michael?
Maggots, Michael, you're eating maggots. How do they taste?
Like chicken. Hashtag holy balls.
Hashtag holy balls.